Hey guys, first of all, I want to apologize that I'm not on the top of my game right now. I'm recovering from knee surgery, but I'm trying to get a message back to somebody who'd asked a pretty deep question the other day, and it has to do with a conversation I had with the Almighty. I've got to give you a little background on the case first. It goes back to having been in a car accident back early 2000, maybe a year or two before that. I was injured in an accident which was not my fault. However, you can carry with your insurance company what's called med, uh, medical coverage, which means your medical bills will be paid for by your own company up until and even after the settlements. But there's a top on how much they can pay out. It also ties in with how many vehicles you have insured under the plan. Anyway, I'd been in a car accident, and my own company, who quite frankly is one of the better insurance companies out there, sent me to a doctor who was known for being a fraud. They said, "We want to get an IME." And I said, "Well, what is that?" And I said, "Well," they said, "it's like a second opinion. Doctors don't always see everything. Maybe another doctor can see something that your doctor's missing. We'd like to get you back to work." I thought, well, that's fine. We just put all of our savings into planting a berry farm, and nothing was being watered, nothing was being taken care of because I was injured. So we had it all on the line. I wanted to get back to work. So I got called into this medical evaluation, and this doctor was known by the doctors in town as being the insurance companies and the attorney's orthopedic surgeon. He was known from Tidewater, Virginia to Charlottesville. Anyway, I was sent to his office. The man flat out lied through his teeth as to what had occurred in that evaluation. Anyway, 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from my insurance company saying we're not going to be paying any more of your medical bills because the doctor's report is self-explanatory. Anyway, it was just totally made up, flat out lies, impossibility. We made statements that the average guy couldn't even do that I was supposed to have been doing, while he allegedly watched me in a dressing room unchange my clothes, which was a flat out lie. He had me take my clothes off right in front of him, standing against the wall. Anyway, I brought that up to the insurance company's lady the day she called. And I said, "What you're doing is wrong." She says, "There's no law says we can't do this." So I talked to a couple of attorneys, figured, okay, it's time we file suit against the insurance company for fraud. You're going to pay a man to perjure himself in court. That's a crime. Perjury is a crime, and if you're paying him, you're the accessory to the crime. You're actually the kingpin. So I figured an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. In the case of David stole Uriah's only wife, one woman in his entire harem, and as punishment, God took David's entire harem away from him. So it's an eye for an eye. It's not a dollar for dollar. If you're a big guy and you got a big eye, you got to pay a whole lot more than a little guy who's just got a little bitty eye. So we filed a suit for, are you ready for this? $3 billion. I took the assets of the entire company versus the percentage of my assets that the bill was. And we filed suit. We figured maybe that would get some people's attention and bring to light how corrupt this whole system is. So we spent months, actually years, back and forth in the various courts where they were making motions to say, hey, the maximum we could be required to pay is the amount of the policy. Well, we're no longer talking civil now, we're talking criminal. You're breaking the law, so is this guy. So is your hitman. So we finally get to court, and when we get to court, out of a jury pool, we said, we brought up that the purpose of the suit was to bring suit against the insurance company for not paying their bills. One lady said, "I'm a claims adjuster and I can testify that insurance companies don't pay their bills," so I couldn't really give a fair evaluation as a juror. and another fellow had been in a car accident where he had not received any compensation in 5 years since his injury. I remember leaning over to my attorney and say, "Hey, can we call these two guys to testify in this case?" He said, "No, we had to give a list of who the witnesses would be before we began." So that really helped the beginning of the case, because people knew that there was something going on, and they knew that there was dirt on behalf of these insurance companies. So the judge puts me under oath. He said, "Will you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?" And I says, "Sir, do you want me to tell the whole truth?" He goes, "Huh?" I said, "Do you want me to tell the whole truth?" He goes, "The whole truth?" I says, "Yes, do you want me to tell the whole truth?" He goes, "Oh, by all means." Then he swore the entire jury in as to what was expected of them. They swore to God, put their hand on, raised their hand and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, every time I started bringing up what happened in that doctor's office, all we ever heard from the other side was, "I object, I object, I object." The judge would not allow the jury to hear the kind of shenanigans that these insurance companies can get away with. He shut the trial down twice, sent the jury out. Finally, the second time, he required us to settle out of court so there would be no record of the proceedings of the testimony that went forward, and made it look to the jury like we got a good settlement, that we were all happy. We got the same amount we would have gotten had the insurance company paid their bills 8 years earlier. All this time wasted. Anyway, a lady with the insurance came up to me. She says, "We pay our big bills." And I knew exactly what she meant. For what it cost me to get a functional capacity exam out of my own pocket, which was hours of psychological questioning and tests of seeing what I was functionally able to do, which I had to pay for. The attorney gets his percentage. You've got the court costs. All this comes out of my pocket if I lose the case. And for the small amount that we would have gotten, most people don't go after it. So it's just good business to screw the little guy. Anyway, now the blessing of the whole thing. The following weekend, I'm driving up to Northern Virginia, where we do farmers markets Saturday morning in Arlington. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving through a little town called Culpeper. And here's the question that's asked me. Now, when that judge put the entire jury under oath at the same time, did he even ask them if they believed in me? And I was like, "Well, no." "Well, don't there have to be two parties to an agreement for the agreement to be binding? Can't just be one-sided, can it?" "Well, no, have to be two parties." "Well, if they don't believe in me, can I hold them accountable to an agreement that only has one party, them?" And I was like, "Okay, I got it." Then said, "Well, now what if the judge did say, 'Do you believe in God?' Is that going to make it legal?" And it was like, "I know you got a little more coming on that one, boss." I said, "Come on." He said, "Just because somebody gets up and says, 'Do you believe in God?' Is that me? Is that my son? Is that Allah? Is it Zeus? Is it Moloch? There's plenty of individuals out there who are claiming to be God, and they're not me. Now, the only way an agreement with me could be binding is if I'm standing there personally, physically, to represent myself, or an officer of my court is standing there to represent me." Now, would I tolerate someone who had my authority to represent me in any kind of a legal matter representing one of my adversaries? Or would that be a conflict of interest? Be a conflict of interest. So therefore, by demonstration, these fellows are demonstrating that in no way do they have my authority whatsoever. And fraud is involved, even bringing my name up in these courtrooms or in any type of oath. And then he sort of bounces this off me because, by the way, I'm going to show you a little mystery about Masonry. Now, when a guy joins the Masons, the same fellow that puts a Mason under oath on the Bible is going to be the same man who puts a Muslim under oath on the Quran. So could he represent me and Allah at the same time, or would that be a conflict of interest? That'd be a conflict of interest. And that flat out demonstrates that he's not one of my officers. And therefore, your oaths that you're being entered into are null and void. They're not binding. Years later, I had an opportunity to join the Masons. And so I had some questions. It was like, is it okay to join? The answer was, well, as far as I'm concerned, these oaths that you're taking with these guys is nothing more than saying, twinkle, twinkle, little star. There's nothing to it at all. It's just an initiation into their club. However, since you know that the oaths are non-binding, you've got to be upfront ahead of time so that you're not involved in non-disclosure, allowing them to think, oh, hey, I'm going to honor these oaths, that they're binding on me when in fact they're not. He says, as long as you explain to the individual that who's going to be putting you under oath the way this principle operates, and he's all right with it, go ahead. That way you're not being fraudulent in your or being deceptive in withholding information. So I went ahead and I joined. Now there's a whole lot more to the whole story as it goes on later and later and later about what I found out. But I'll take another step further too. You and I cannot shake hands and agree to commit a crime. That agreement would never hold up. We cannot legalize a crime through a civil agreement. Just like man cannot say, oh, it's okay to kill unborn babies. God's law says no. And just because we say it is okay is not going to alleviate the crime that's been committed on the higher court system. Anyway, so here's the principle of legal representation of the Eternal Father versus these fake oaths that's literally being done across the board in all of our courts. None of these guys, just because they pick up a Bible, means they have any authority to represent God in any manner whatsoever.